Members of the National Assembly, making up the 4-member Standing Committee on Public Accounts last week, agreed to work together to ensure accountability where public funds are concerned. And last week, SCOPA completed a 2-day induction of members of the 7th administration, where they delved into methods of work and how it should process resolutions. They also went through the 6th Parliament Legacy Report. And we're speaking now to SCOPA Chair Songezo Zibi about the induction and some of the key findings in the Legacy Report of the previous Parliament. Songezo, good morning. Welcome to Newzroom Afrika. Whoa, welcome to, welcome to Newzroom Afrika, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
What key insights or takeaways emerged from the session, first and foremost?
Masechaba, thank you. Firstly, SCOPA is 11 members with several alternates. So the parties represented are the African National Congress, the Democratic Alliance, Umkhonto weSizwe, and the EFF, with guaranteed members each, and then the rest come from a minority political party. So it's not 4 members. But the important thing about this past week and this coming weekend, and I think I would say until the 18th of September, is to make sure that the members of the committee are fully appraised as to where the previous Standing Committee on Public Accounts left work on various matters. So the legacy report is essentially a handing over report. And a couple of things have become clear. The first is that there are entities and departments which are really struggling to comply with the Public Finance Management Act in as far as providing the Auditor General with enough information to reach a conclusion and form an opinion, which is called a disclaimer. Many of them also have qualified audits or similar, and that needs to change. So that is the one thing. The second thing is that there are also entities that are really struggling to even put financial statements together.
All right. Could you elaborate on SCOPA's functions, like particularly the mandate and how the committee executes its oversight functions?
Yes. In fact, I mean, the simplest way to explain SCOPA's mandate is maybe to say 3 things. The first is that we have an Auditor General in South Africa. There is an Auditor General Committee which oversees the Office of the Auditor General, and then there's a Standing Committee on Public Accounts. All of that work that the Auditor General does, whether it is forming an opinion in annual reports and financial statements and so on, ends up before SCOPA. So we are a really big client of the Auditor General, number one. Number 2 is that our function is to make sure that the budgets that have been allocated to government departments and other entities are spent according to what the ministers said in their budget votes. So when we talk about unauthorized expenditure, it doesn't mean that somebody disobeyed their boss. It means you came to Parliament to ask for 10 billion. We authorized it for this purpose. You didn't use it for that purpose. And the last is where there's poor governance, obviously, which results in poor financial outcomes. SCOPA also gets involved.
And Songezo, what legacy issues from the 6th Parliament will SCOPA prioritize?
So we are still going to work on our priorities, but let me just share some highlights. So first of all, I think what we know is that there are some government departments which are really struggling. The Department of Defense, for instance, the Department of Military Veterans, really has some of the worst audit outcomes. There is a new minister, and I look forward to working with Minister Njimoteka to make sure that the situation changes. That's one example. There is PRASA, there is Transnet, there's Eskom, and so on, which are in various stages of recovery. Some further behind than others from a governance perspective. So you've got state-owned entities. And then that what we often forget, municipalities fall under the purview of SCOPA too. And one of the really good things the previous committee did was to start digging into municipalities. There are some bad ones out there. So we need to make sure that we mix up between national and also the local issues, government departments and commercial entities as well.
What are the key challenges that SCOPA faces in executing its mandate, and how will you address these?
So the most important is to get the committee, which is made up of members from different political parties with different political mandates and so on, to work together as a team. So part of what we're doing is actually is a bit of team building, so that we know each other, we're comfortable with one another, we've got one agenda, and we all sing from the same hymn sheet. And this past week was really great, and I'm looking forward to meeting the members again for the next week. So that's the first thing. The second thing is ministers in particular avoiding coming to SCOPA in various ways, cancelling at the last minute and so on. I have been assured by the Office of the Deputy President that they will make sure that does not happen this time around. We will treat everyone with respect, give them time years notice, but please, Parliament is an important constitutional body. When anyone gets called, you and I, we show up, and ministers need to do the same. And finally, big challenge is the ability of many of these entities to manage their financial affairs properly. Some of the reason they have disclaimers is because the information is all over the place. The assets have never been logged properly. There is no asset register. So if things got bought in this financial year and the Auditor General wants to know where those assets are, they won't know, which is a massive challenge. Of course, there's corruption.
Yeah. And what is the middle ground, especially considering that different parties have different policies?
No, what I found is that the attitude of all the political parties, by the way, is the same, in as far as making sure that there is proper governance and that we fight corruption. The good thing we have about this SCOPA is that no single political party has a majority. So it will not be possible for the ANC or the DA to simply protect its members by voting against a motion or a report, right? They have to win the argument and convince other political parties. That's a really good thing. The second thing is for not to treat SCOPA as an enemy that is on a witch hunt. We all want the same thing. If the government wants clean governance, SCOPA wants the same. Let us work together. Where people need to be held accountable, we should. And that shouldn't be a problem. It's not personal. It's what the Constitution asks us to do.
What role do you see SCOPA playing in promoting transparency and accountability in public finance?
I mean, first of all our hearings are public, and therefore all our business, even the induction was conducted in public. So the members of the committee, members of the public can walk in anytime to come and see the proceedings. The second thing, though, is that we're going to work very hard to make sure that in our program, we give voice to other representatives of communities and so on, because it's not just the numbers that you should be concerned with, it's also the impact of the poor governance. And we need to give those people a voice to say this failure by this municipality has had this impact on my life, right? Because then it's not abstract anymore. We can see that poor administration and corruption are not victimless crimes. People really do suffer, so that we can drive the right culture and outcomes.
As SCOPA, you've raised concerns about departments and state entities that do not table their annual reports. So what's the current state of the annual reports from these departments?
So there are some that are outstanding, but so the program is going to work like this. Between now and the 18th of September, we're going to have briefings from the Auditor General, from some of these entities, National Skills Fund, NSFAS, Transnet, PRASA, ESCOM, etc., etc. And then when we return from recess in October, we're going to get the tabling of the annual reports. At that point, or between now and then, we will know which entity will not be able to table its annual report, and then we'll take it up accordingly. For now, I'm moving from a place of good faith to say everybody gets a chance in October onwards to table their annual report, and SCOPA is waiting to receive them.
What specific areas of collaboration is SCOPA exploring with the SIU?
So it's not an exploration, by the way. There is a memorandum of understanding between the committee and the Special Investigating Unit, because SCOPA does not have the capacity or enough time to conduct detailed inquiries into allegations of corruption, for instance. Secondly, the SIU has the mandate to recover assets. Even if somebody has not gone to jail yet, as you know, they can apply to freeze somebody's assets, to recover those assets, to cancel contracts and so on. So it is a relationship where we utilize the SIU's current mandate to refer matters to them. They then prepare a proclamation, which is then sent to the president for signature. Then they start doing their work.
All right. And SCOPA's press release mentioned that the committee will devise a 7-mechanism strategy to ensure that auditees with financial management challenges and governance issues receive specific attention in order to improve their financial performance. So how will SCOPA actually measure the effectiveness of these mechanisms, especially in improving performance?
Let me first make an example of what these mechanisms are. There are instances where you've got maladministration or poor administration and corruption because the people appointed to certain roles are unsuitable. So if hiring practices are a problem, we need to fix the hiring practices. We can't wait until money has disappeared and then we shout at people instead of of fixing the root cause. And the kind of impact we're wanting to see is that over the next 5 years, the amount of money that is misspent, that has gone missing, no asset registers or poor sort of asset register keeping and so on, they reduce over time. The cases of corruption, etc., etc. So we will talk to entities about their governance systems, about accountability, whether people get suspended, they get disciplined, and so on. It's not just where did the money go, it's what are you doing? And finally, we are going to have recurring conversations with entities. Coming to SCOPA won't be an event. There'll be a series of engagements so that we can see that you are doing what you said you would do.